The Reds have Mike Leake going for him on the mound tonight. You've compared him to Greg Maddux, and in spring training you also had a conversation with him where he described himself as Godzilla.
Well, I think with the Godzilla thing, he was just it was a flip kind of comment. He's a real low-key, soft-spoken guy. You know, I think mellow Californian kind of fits him. I think his style is a lot like Greg Maddux. I would never say that a guy who's 23 years old is going to be as good as him, but he's not overpowering. He has tremendous movement on his pitches, and that's how he gets by. I mean, but this is going to be a tremendous test for him tonight. This Dodgers lineup is just maybe the best in the league. So, but he's passed every test so far. I think one of the things that you really have to give him credit for is he was pitching for a job, and he went out there. I think it was against the A's basically, and he had to put up a good performance to make the team, and he did it. And then his two starts have been very good. He's the one guy in the rotation right now who's been pretty pitch efficient. That's one of the reasons the Reds are really struggling is these guys have run their pitch counts up very high, and although he's walked a lot of people, he's walked 11 in 2 starts. He's been able to keep his pitch count reasonable, and he pitched 7 in the one game, and got into the 7th in the other.
Yesterday, the Reds announced they hired Joe Morgan as a special advisor to baseball operations. His name is included in the likes of Eric Davis, Mario Soto, King Griffey Sr., and just recently Barry Larkin and Sean Casey have came back to the Reds. How important is it that the Reds bring back old players, and do you have any insights on the Joe Morgan situation?
Well, I think it's important. I think it's, those guys were pretty much away from the club for a fairly long period of time. I think since the Castellini family took over, they've made that a point of emphasis to try to bring these guys back. I think, in a lot of cases it's pretty ceremonial, but I think in this case with Joe, I don't think he's going to have much to do with baseball. I think he may advise here and there, but I think the important thing he's going to try to do is reestablish baseball in the African American community here, and that's a big subject for baseball. And I think he's the right guy to do it, and this is the right place to do it. So I think you have to give the Reds a lot of credit. They've done a lot very well in the community. They haven't won, but since the Castellini's taken over, they've really emphasized community involvement and trying to get in touch with the past. The rich past of this team.
If you would, describe your love-hate relationship with the game of baseball.
The thing I love about covering baseball is there's a game almost every day. I've covered other sports, and you kind of, you spend a lot of time building up to games. Here, there's a game every day, and there's a lot of interesting stories. And as far as professional sports right now, baseball players are very accessible. I can get to them pretty much any time, and they're really easy to deal with. I think the thing I hate about it is being away from home a lot. I don't have any children, but I'm married, and you spend a lot of time away from your wife and your home. And spring training is a great thing, but you're gone for 6 weeks, so you kind of have to uproot your life and change things. So that's not to be taken as a complaint, but that's the one drawback to this job, I'd say.
The Reds manager, Dusty Baker, is in his last year of a 3-year contract. You said on Redleg Nation Radio that he needs to win to secure his job. Do you think it's going to be up to him or the Reds this year?
Well, I think a manager at any time has some effect on it, but you're pretty much given the hand you're dealt with. If Dusty Baker and Joe Girardi switched places, I don't think you'd see a huge difference in the record. I mean, the Yankees are going to win, 95 to 100 games this year because they have a stacked lineup and they have a $200 million payroll. But I think Dusty can affect things somewhat. This team has, they had some questions going in. I think all along kind of questioned the offense. They've got some unproven guys out there, and those guys haven't come through yet. Drew Stubbs and Jay Bruce. So, and Aaron Harang struggled tremendously. So I think, you got the team you're dealt, and I think Dusty understands that. But I think any manager knows in the third year of a 3-year contract, and you haven't won the first 2, you have to win the third to probably come back.
The Reds are off to a rough 6-9 start this season. They got beat up last night, like you said, one of the best lineups in the National League. What do you think the Reds need to do to fix their bad start? Do they need to bring up pitching? Do they need to bring up a bat? Travis Wood isn't doing too well down in Louisville, but Matt Maloney is, and the Nick Massett problem needs to be fixed, in my opinion.
Well, I think, in the case of Nick Massett, they just have to live with him. I think he's going to come around. I think with Aaron Harang, we talked to Dusty about it today, and I think you could see something happen where he's at least skipped the start or something. But basically, what the Reds have to do is pitch better. I think the first 6 games they came out. They started the season 5-3. They were pitching pretty well. They haven't pitched well since. I think if the starting pitching doesn't improve, they've got no chance. I think they have some depth at Louisville. And they have Aroldis Chapman, so I think at some point they're going to have to look at that if things don't turn around. I think we'll see what he does. He's pitching tonight. The guy has dynamic stuff. He throws harder than anybody in baseball, probably. So I think they may have to look at that at some point. But this team is going to be as good or bad as it is because of pitching. They just have to live with what they've got and hope it turns around.
All right, with that said, what would be your predictions for the season? Do you think this is the same old Reds this year, or is it just the same old Reds fans becoming discouraged too early?
Well, I think fans have every right to be discouraged. The team hasn't won in 9 years, and they've gotten off to a bad start, and they've played very bad lately. But it's 15 games, so that there's a lot of games left to play, and I think if the pitching can come around and be as advertised, I think they've got a chance to be pretty good. They need their big guys to be better. And I'm talking more about pitching than anything. The starting pitching's 14th or 15th in the league right now, and it just can't be that bad. The bullpen, I think, will come around. I think Massett will be okay eventually, and they were third in the National League last year in relief pitching. So I think it comes down to the pitching, and I think if things go right, you can look for them to break that streak of 9 straight losing seasons.
Okay, you could be found at Cincinnati.com. You've got a blog. You've also got a Twitter account. That's at John Fayman. Do you think the new technology in journalism hinders or helps your job?
I don't know if it hinders or helps. It's a reality. You can't. When I started, even in 2001, and all I wrote for was the paper. Now I'm writing for, you've got Twitter, you got a blog, we got stuff we're putting on the internet, and it's just it's a much more fast-paced world, and people want stuff now, and that's the way it is, and it's much more an internet-driven industry now. So, I enjoy it. I think it gives you more of a connection with the fans, where not that long ago, people could write you a letter or maybe email, but now people, with Twitter particularly, they can kind of get to me almost instantly. So it's interesting. I think I think fans can participate in a little more, and all the talk about social media. So it kind of gives people a way to kind of join in on things.
All right, our 14th question always revolves around Pete Rose. What are your thoughts on Pete Rose and his banishment from baseball?
Well, I'd like to see him back in the game, but I think at the same time, with Bud Selig, I just don't think it's going to happen. I think Joe Morgan said on WLW last night that he doesn't see it happening with Bud Selig, and I think Pete's partly to blame for that. He does stuff that puts baseball in a bad light. I mean, I'm sure people that follow you guys heard about the Howard Stern interview and stuff, and that just doesn't make Pete look good. And it's part of his personality and in the way he is, but Selig looks on that stuff and just kind of shakes his head. So but I think Bud Selig retires in 2 or 3 years or whatever, and I think maybe after that something could happen, but I'd be really surprised if something did before.
Everybody seems to not question his numbers, but everybody I hear from has a bad story about Pete Rose.
Yeah, like I said, it's part of his personality. But if you look at what he did on the field, there's no question he's a Hall of Famer. He would have been a first ballot. He would have been very close to getting the highest percentage. But it's part of the package.
All right, John. Well, thanks a lot for your time.
No problem.
Check out John at Cincinnati.com. We'll check back in with you later on in the season.
All right. Thanks.